So I'll go over a few key tips now, some general do's and don'ts when putting together your resume. So as I've explained, make the resume concise. Keep it to the point, but keep it very punchy and also keep it relevant. Now, if you're applying for a job and you've got a copy of a job description, and on that job description, the employer wants experience in, say, 5 different areas. If you're experienced in those 5 areas, tell the employer that. I've seen so many CVs that people have sent in for a job opportunity. And looking at the individual, looking at the background, there's no doubt in my mind that they could actually do the job blindfolded. But what they haven't done is they haven't actually tailored their CV to the actual job description. So they've kept the same CV, the same format, and they've sent it off, knowing very well that they can perform very well at that job. Unfortunately, the person on the other end, a lot of the time, it can either be internal recruitment or human resources. They read that CV, and what they tend to do is they tend to do a tick list. So they'll go off the job description on one side of the desk and the resume on the other side. And if they don't see what they're looking for in the job description, the resume won't get through, unfortunately. So that's why it's vital to ensure that your resume is tailored and it's relevant to the job description. And again, just to repeat, a lot of the time, internal recruitment or human resources will be reviewing these CVs long before they get to a hiring manager. So the key here really is to ensure that your CV is not rejected. Ensure that the person reading your CV feels compelled to continue reading as well. So we talked about the length of CVs, but by keeping it concise, by ensuring it's packed with relevant information, demonstrating that you can do the job, that there's achievements in there, that person who's reading your CV will be compelled to continue reading. So it should be captivating, it should keep the reader compelled to carry on. One thing I would certainly recommend is to think every time you put a resume together, every time you apply for a job opportunity, think about why that company should employ you above anybody else. What is unique about you? What can you do perhaps that someone else can't? Now, there is a blog that I put together called 16 Questions You Can Ask Yourself to Create a Better CV. And you can find that on the website, www.markpierce.net. And it's 16 questions you can ask yourself. But these are general questions that you should be asking yourself when you're putting your resume together. You want to be different and you want to stand out. So think differently. Think about why you are unique. Think about what you can do for an employer in your first 90 days. So think back when you were new to your previous employer. You were keen, you were raring to get go. What can you do for this employer in the first 90 days? Tell them that. Put that on the resume. So that's a great opportunity for you to put that in the summary part and explain exactly what you can do. That's the first thing they're going to read. So as I said previously, compel them to carry on reading your resume. Where you can, use tangible, measurable achievements. Now, as I've explained, either in dollars, percentages, or in time. Explain what your greatest or your proudest moment has been with your previous employer. Use the right language as well. Now, this is key. I really don't like the use of the phrase buzzwords, but basically, when someone is reading your CV, they want to be able to mirror your CV with the job description. So you should be using the right language. As I mentioned before, a lot of CVs, or a lot of resumes rather, that we receive from candidates, we know they can do the job, but sometimes they don't use the right language. They keep the resume exactly how they've had it when they've applied for previous jobs. So change the language around. Use the language that you see, and don't be afraid to use the language you see in the job descriptions that you receive. Avoid cliches as well. So, for example, I see a lot of CVs that have the formidable team player, number cruncher as well is another cliche that creeps in. And please refrain from using phrases like ninja, evangelist, or go-to person. If I'm being honest, those are big turn-offs. When someone reads that on your CV, it's hard to keep on and continue reading the CV. So avoid cliches as best as you can. You also want to address any gaps in your employment history. Now, I understand if you're working as a contractor, or if you've taken some time out, I don't know, maybe to start a family, or you've been traveling, don't be afraid to address any gaps on your resume. And I'll show you an example of one shortly in the example resume. Avoid political views, religion, and race as well within your CV. An employee doesn't really need to know which political party you support. I'd also go as far as well to say maybe avoid sports teams or football teams or whatever in there. Don't make false claims as well. Be true to yourself. So don't put something in your resume claiming you've done something if you haven't. Claim that you've got experience in something if you haven't. Because if you do get to an interview, hopefully you will get to an interview, you will be found out pretty quickly. And last by no means least, don't give an employer a reason to reject your resume. So what I mean by that is ensure before you send your resume to an employee, make sure that you've tailored the resume, you've followed every bit of advice, or as much of the advice as you've seen today in this webinar, and make sure that your resume is as close or as accurate to the job description as you can possibly make it. Remember, you want that reader to continue reading, and the objective here is to ensure that the employer invites you in for an interview. So let's just have a look now at, we'll close this out by having a look at an example resume. So we'll close out today by giving you an example resume to run through, just give you an idea of the structure and the content. So very briefly, I'll just run through this here. So as you can see here, hopefully you can see my the cursor here. So you have the obviously your name, address details, and also as well, most important, as we said, the contact details here. Your profile summary, explaining who you are, what you do, potentially what you can bring to an organization as well. And this particular resume is then followed by achievements. So you can see here, as I mentioned before, there's whatever currency, pounds, dollars, etc. Time, exactly what benefits have been brought to the employer. So make sure that you do have, it's very important to have achievements or accomplishments in your resume. Essential skills and knowledge as well. So for this particular role, which was a payroll officer role, it's important that this individual had this level of experience. So those went next, just to demonstrate to the reader that they were experienced and they had the knowledge. And then that was followed by the career summary. Just give an example. You can see here the bullet points, exactly what that individual was doing. And then there was a gap here as well. So this person's emigrated to New Zealand and was settling in their family. And again, just explaining to the employer exactly what we're doing, rather than just having a gap in their resume. And then again, employer prior to that, and so on, and so on. So just coming down to the bottom of the CV, qualifications which possibly weren't deemed to be a requirement for the role, but you'd still put those in anyway to explain what this person's done. Some hobbies and some interests, and then some personal details like date of birth, marital status, driver's license. If I believe for this particular role, the person did need to drive for it as well to get out to the to various locations. So thank you for watching.